Hi, we're Josh
and Ariel Wamsley,
owners of Green Valley Tree LLC, based in North Windham.
We're proud to sponsor Connecticut East this week and to serve the communities of Windham and New London counties with our tree removal and plant healthcare services.
Visit our website at greenvalleytreeworks.com for a full list of our services or give us a call on 860-234-4041. We look forward to hearing from you.
Celebrating 25 years of Mohegan Sun, we talk with two top executives and hear their stories. Plus, new research from Eastern Connecticut State University on how storms, not sea level, is driving shoreline change. Plus, we take a look at other stories making the headlines from around the region. This is Connecticut East This Week. Hello, I'm Brian Scott-Smith. Its iconic glass buildings have become part of the Eastern Connecticut landscape for the last 25 years. And for many, it seems like only yesterday that the Mohegan Sun Casino and Resort opened its doors to the public for the first time. Since then, hundreds of thousands of people have played the slot machines, eaten at restaurants, seen a show, or just stayed at the resort to enjoy the tranquil surroundings. And it's not just people who come and stay at Mohegan Sun, so do many of its employees. I caught up with two top Mohegan Sun executives recently to get their thoughts and reflections on this 25th anniversary year. Joining us on Connecticut East this week is Jeff Hamilton, the President and General Manager of Mohegan Sun, and Kim Noto, Vice President of Marketing and Chief Marketing Officer also of Mohegan Sun. To you both, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So very exciting time for Mohegan Sun. I suppose one could say actually every day is exciting for both of you. But 25 years Mohegan Sun celebrates on October the 12th. Just tell us a little bit about what that means for the organization, Jeff.
I think, for us to think about the impact we've had over the course of the last 25 years and just the success that we've been able to achieve. I think when you have big birthdays and you think back to, some of the things that you've been through, both good and bad, and you think about how or where you've ended or where you've come to, it's just really an exciting time to think about how we really have transformed our property into a destination and really have transformed, the area of Connecticut, southeastern Connecticut, into a place that hosts, humongous shows, has great entertainment, Miss America, Barrett-Jackson. I'm from southeastern Connecticut, and if you would have told me, when I was a kid that we would have, Bruce Springsteen playing in Uncasville, Connecticut, I would say, you're crazy. So I just think back to the success of the tribe and the property and just what we've become. It's just a tremendous feeling.
You yourself have been with Mohegan Sun for 17 years. You've risen through the ranks. It's obviously a special place.
Yeah, and it's definitely a special place to work. And I think that's what makes us, so good is that it's a place that's relaxed, that really cares about its team members. It's like a big family. So, we're a very large business, but we operate like a small business. And there's so much longevity here where, you have team members, we still have over 400 team members that are day one team members. We have two of our top executives that are day one team members that both started out in entry level positions. I think, people usually don't leave here because it's a great place. It's a great place to work. And while we've had our ups and downs, I think we've always stayed true to our core values and our culture. And that has allowed us to navigate through difficult times and come out, even more successful.
And Kim, I want to turn to you. You have a very important role, obviously, along with Jeff, as part of corporate management, Vice President of Marketing and Chief Marketing Officer. I mean, that's a big job as well, isn't it?
It is, and it's been very exciting. So I'm a 14-year employee here, and I've learned a lot in my 14 years, but I've probably learned the most in my last 4 or 5. And, every day is new and every day is exciting, and nothing's more exciting than celebrating our 25th.
Can I take you back to 2007, when you actually joined Mohegan Sun? Can you remember what got you there?
So many things. I think just the excitement of a new challenge. I had recently graduated and I was looking to enter the workforce, and this place just felt like a home. From my first interview to my first day, everybody was so welcoming, and I knew I had a lot to learn and I knew I had a lot to contribute. And I'm very, very happy with the relationships I've made here. And I'm very proud of being part of this organization.
And Jeff, what about you? Let's take you back to 2004, which is when you joined Mohegan Sun. I mean, you've held several important key management positions. Just talk us through how you got to Mohegan Sun.
Yes, I was lucky enough when I was in college that I worked in, we used to have a restaurant called Chief's Deli. I worked here, for a few summers, in the early 2000s before I started the tenure that I have in 2004. So I was already pretty aware of the organization. I often tell people that I just got lucky. My undergrad is in social work, and I realized later in my college career that that's something that I probably wasn't going to be able to do for the rest of my life just due to the stress level. I always tell people, if you know a social worker, give them a big hug. And really just got lucky in a human resources position here, through the relationships I had built, during those summers, and fell in love with, working with people for the betterment of business. And I would say throughout all of my positions, both in human resources and marketing, and then executive leadership, I think that's always been my focus, is understanding that the people really make the Mohegan Sun, what it is, and never losing the focus, whether it's our customers or our team members. It's really about people and delivering great service, creating special memories that invoke emotion, right, and that are special. So, I really have enjoyed being able to work with people in this type of environment.
Mohegan Sun, of course, is the younger of the two casinos here in Connecticut. Of course, Foxwoods will celebrate 30 years in 2022. Do you think that being the slightly younger of the two casinos gives you an advantage because you were able, the organization was able to look at what Foxwoods did and then decide, well, we're going to do things a little different?
Yeah, I think there is a benefit to being second in this case, where you can kind of see how the market was developing early on, and then I think from a facility standpoint, kind of understand, what guests we're looking for. I would say that I think we have worked independently. I think the one thing that in both casinos I think the one thing that we've always been focused on is, we're going to do what we think is correct for our business. We're not going to follow or adjust based upon, what anyone else is doing. So I think very early on, Tribe and the original executive team put together 4 core values. And those 4 core values, help us to make decisions, still are a factor in every decision we make today. So while we were second, I think we quickly, became the leader for our organization, where we are going to operate our business in the way that we believe is the best way, regardless of what other people or other casinos are doing around us. And I think, again, that's led to us being even more successful, is that we've tried new things. We haven't altered our strategy, and we continue to focus on, every single day, every single year getting better, continuously striving for perfection, being better today than we were yesterday.
Well, of course, you look at Mohegan Sun, the actual structure itself, the beautiful glass buildings which form part of the overall campus. It's striking that they are 25 years old because it doesn't look old at all. I mean, it seems it's very timeless.
Yeah, I would say, one thing that, again, is one of our key values is we treat this as if it's our home. So, we're very big on cleanliness and maintenance. We're very proud of our engineering team and our EVS team, to make sure that it looks like new. So if something's broken, we fix it. We never alter from that. And we like to make sure that our property is always, the cleanest it can possibly be. We live with the strategy that it's everyone's job to clean. So we have a few hundred EVS team members that their total focus is cleaning the property. But from a team member perspective, we live, with it's everyone's job to clean. So if we see a paper or a spill, whether you're, Kim Noto or Jeff Hamilton or your table game dealer, we all recognize that, this is our house and we need to clean that up. And it's the same with facility maintenance. So our maintenance team is constantly walking around looking for things that are broken or need to be repaired. And it's the same with every team member. So, if a team member notices that something broken or a light bulb is out or a sign is down or, something is cracked, we're alerting our engineering team, and then they understand the importance of, getting that repaired as quickly as possible. And I think that's allowed us, to make sure that our 25-year-old property still looks like it just opened yesterday.
And Kim, turning back to you, so many people, and Jeff alluded to this earlier in the interview, so many famous people, celebrities have come through the doors of Mohegan Sun, continue to come through the doors of Mohegan Sun. How do you keep up with all of it?
I think, like Jeff said, we treat them like family as well, right? We want them to enjoy their time here. We want them to look forward to visiting us, and we want them to come back. So we take them on a tour, we give them the site. We just really want them to feel comfortable here. And we've built such a beautiful property that we can accommodate them. We have a beautiful Sky Tower hotel And we have an amazing arena that they love to perform in. And they tell us time and time again, the reason they come back is the people that we have and the service we provide.
Let's turn to some of the big things which have been happening recently as well. One, of course, is Miss America coming back to Mohegan Sun. Hopefully it's going to be there for a substantial amount of time. What did that mean, Kim, to the organization?
We're so thrilled to partner with Miss America and the organization. We just really believe in their message, and we feel that we are an excellent partner to share that message with the community. These women are very accomplished and very inspirational, and that's something we are happy to align our brand with.
And Jeff, sports betting, of course, fairly recently, in fact, the beginning of October, sort of sports betting became legal, as it were, here in Connecticut. Yourself and obviously the other casino have opened up sports books. Again, what does that mean to the casino to be able to bring that to its customers?
It just adds to the destination that we're trying to create. So I think when you think about sports betting, I think, the growth of sports betting in the country as a whole has been significant over the last, 5 years. In the Northeast, not so much. So New York doesn't have sports betting. Massachusetts doesn't have sports betting yet. Rhode Island does. But, I think, similar to what we've done with our arenas and our properties, I think both casinos are going to create a destination for watching and betting on sports. So we're really excited to be able to offer, this amenity and this new business to our customers. And really what we've seen in other jurisdictions is that sports betting is going to drive additional revenue, but it also increases, your slot revenue and your table games revenue, because people that play table games and slots also like to watch and bet on sports. So there's definitely a synergy between the other aspects of our gaming business and sports betting. So I know we're in the midst of building, an 11,000 square foot sports book with our 170 foot TV as the centerpiece of that. And really, when it opens, a destination for watching sports, I would say, probably one of the best places to watch sports in the whole country.
And another thing I want to pick up on, and again, we would be remiss if we didn't mention this, because I think you must be the only casino, certainly that I'm aware of, that owns its own WNBA team, the Connecticut Sun.
Our Connecticut Sun, they're the number one seed in the WNBA playoffs this year. They're in the semifinals right now, tied 1-1. It was pretty exciting, to be able to launch sports betting on the night that we had a semifinal game and, giving, our fans the ability to walk down to the temporary sports book at Bow and Arrow, place a wager on the Connecticut Sun, and then go watch them win and cover from a point spread perspective. So I know a lot of our fans not only were excited that the Connecticut Sun won, but we're also excited that their pockets got a little fatter if they played some money on them.
The world is constantly changing. We'll always want to visit, amazing places like Mohegan Sun, just for that touchy-feely sort of experience. But, when it comes to gambling, etc., we're seeing more online things happening. So how do you keep pace with that?
I think for us, making everything experiential, right? So I think that's been our focus over the course of our last 25 years. We really have honed in on that over the course of the last few years. I think you look at that from our F&B perspective with, opening a Tao that really is an experiential restaurant. We added to our Sky Tower luxury element to that really is something that our guests really love. And, people are being driven just to experience that from an experiential standpoint. And then I think with sports betting, I think we're going to create an experiential sports betting / watching experience. And we're not stopping there. We have, multiple projects that we're working on currently to, add more experiential food and beverage. And then I think as we think about the next, 10 or 15 years, the Preston development is something that the tribe is really focused on. You could see, additional non-gaming amenities coming to the property. So while we've had a great 25 years, I think, I really do look forward to the next 25 years and, where we're going to be 25 years from now, what this property will look like.
And Kim, in a world where we're so obsessed at looking at our phones and, as I say, doing things, remotely and online, what sort of challenges does that pose for you, from a marketing point of view, as I say, to try and keep people engaged with Mohegan Sun, as Jeff was saying, either by coming to physically visit or in other ways?
It definitely has been a challenge, more so over the past year as we all get more used to Zoom meetings and working from home and staying on our couches and still being able to access everything. But I think, like Jeff said, it's the experience you get here that you can't get anywhere else. And it's an experience that's available to everyone. You can be interested in gaming, you could be interested in music, you could be interested in restaurants and shopping. And we have a little bit of everything. And we hope that people take the journey to visit us and experience it and continue to come back.
Well, Jeff Hamilton, President and General Manager of Mohegan Sun, and Kim Noto, Vice President of Marketing and Chief Marketing Officer of Mohegan Sun, thank you again for joining us on Connecticut East, and happy 25th birthday to all of you at Mohegan Sun.
Thank you.
October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Increased awareness and early detection through regular screening have put breast cancer deaths on the decline. Research shows that screening with mammography can detect breast cancer early when it is most treatable. Women over 40 should schedule a mammogram today. Women of any age who are at high risk should talk to their doctors about when to start screening. For information about mammography, breast cancer disease, screening, and treatment, visit radiologyinfo.org.
Climate change is a topic that never seems to be out of the news, and with more regular and intense storms and hurricanes battering our shoreline, for those living there, loss or damage to property is becoming also more frequent. And according to new research, it's storms and not sea level that is driving shoreline change. I spoke to the author of the research, coastal geologist Brian Oakley, a professor in the Environmental Earth Science Department at Eastern Connecticut State University. Brian, thanks for joining us.
No problem, Brian.
So you've got some new research out that basically says storms, not sea level, drive shoreline change. Explain to us a little bit more about that.
So what we did was look at Napatree Point as an example of how coastal barriers behave responding to storms. Napatree is located in southwest Rhode Island, kind of right across from Stonington. And it's a great example to look at because it's almost completely undeveloped following the 1938 hurricane. So we don't have a lot of human impact to look at how that would have modified the shoreline. And the findings show that between 1938 and the 1970s, which was a period of several notable storms, obviously the 1938 hurricane, but then additional hurricanes in 1944, 1954, and a big March nor'easter in 1962, really drove most of the shoreline change that we've observed at that site over the last 75 years. So the takeaway for us on that was that storms are incredibly important in terms of moving the sediment and altering the shoreline. And it's not discounting sea level rise, but in terms of the coastal processes during storms, it just dwarfs the sea level rise we've seen over that same time period.
Without appearing rude, people are going to say, okay, 75 years that you're talking about here, so why should we care?
We should care for a couple of reasons. One, the potential exists in coming decades to see more frequent and more intense storms. So periods of shoreline change like that period between 1938 and the 1960s could happen again and could be exacerbated as water levels continue to rise. It's really not up for debate that sea level's rising. We can measure that. And that does have impacts on the shoreline. The other reason we should care is that most coastal communities look at historic shoreline change to think about how close to build to the shoreline. And if you looked at that over the entire period from 1938 till 2021, you'd see a certain amount of historic shoreline change. But one of the takeaways from this work would be that that change spread out over 75 years shows a certain amount of migration of the shoreline. But in fact, most of the actual erosion and change in shoreline position happened in a relatively short period of time. So when you look at that whole 75 years, you're really spreading the risk out more and underestimating what the actual magnitude of some of these changes are.
So what does that mean for sort of like properties? I mean, we've got a lot of shoreline property here in Connecticut and obviously in any other sort of states which have shoreline. So what does that mean for people who've got property on the shoreline then?
Well, I think in big picture, the timing of the storms shows that even though we had Superstorm Sandy in 2012, which was obviously devastating for parts of our shoreline, we're still relatively inexperienced when it comes to big storms. Right? Storms of the 1938 scale. And following a storm like that, the shorelines remain incredibly vulnerable while they're basically recovering through natural processes. So if you have a significant storm event, even if you survive the storm and your house and property are intact, you're at more risk in the near future if you were to get a second storm within a fairly short period of time.
Does your research sort of like suggest that we need to do much more when it comes to coastal management and perhaps building artificial barriers to help sort of beef up, the natural barriers which are there?
Actually, what it shows is kind of the opposite of that. Napa Tree is undeveloped. And if you went there today, you'd see it's got a robust dune system, a lot of different habitats within the coastal system there. It's just in a different position it was in 1938. But because it's been allowed to recover naturally, it's actually been resilient in its own way without us having to do a whole lot about it. I'm always leery of these engineering projects because, as we've seen time and time again, they fail. And while they can work in certain storms and protect in certain instances, ultimately, the natural system does a lot better than our human systems.
You say obviously it's naturally to looked after itself, but as we were talking about, people have got property on the shoreline, and we're talking about, potential erosion and over time potential damage to their properties, I assume, from this slow creeping invasion, as it were. So surely they need to be looking at doing something, though.
They need to be looking at doing what they're allowed to do within regulations that also aren't going to have negative impacts on their shoreline and on adjacent properties. One of the challenges and one of the balances is protecting properties, but also protecting the adjacent areas. And when you start armoring shorelines, you generally have negative consequences both in front of the property, but also on adjacent shorelines. If you armor one with a seawall, the property next door might end up having some problems down the road.
So is there any other data in your research that can help municipalities who have a lot of shoreline as part of, the land that they look after then?
Yeah, the other part we do is a lot of field observations and following Sandy. I was not out there surveying after the 38 hurricane, but after Sandy up through the present, it also allows us to look at how fast these systems can recover and to allow these managers to plan appropriately. Not necessarily overreact to, I need to come in and dump a bunch of sand, or I need to come in and build a seawall. If you understand how long it takes these systems to respond, which is on the order of years to get the dune systems back, it allows you to plan accordingly when the next storm happens.
We are seeing, obviously, more storms happening. I mean, we've had them fairly recently. We had Tropical Storm Henri, but also we do seem to be getting more intense storms. I mean, forecasters talk about these storms being a once in a 100 or 200 years occurrence, but the reality is they seem to be occurring with a lot more frequency. So surely we're going to be seeing a lot more damage to our shorelines.
It's quite possible. And if that is true, and the science, and particularly it's complicated with hurricanes because warmer oceans certainly have potential to fuel more powerful storms, but it also complicates things like wind shear that actually destroy hurricanes as they're forming. So the science seems to suggest that, yes, we will see more frequent and more intense storms as we go through the coming decades. And yeah, if we get into a period where we see more frequent storms, it obviously has the potential to cause more significant shoreline change than just one storm followed by a long period of no storms.
Do you also think that it suggests that maybe we need to be stepping back from the shoreline a bit? I mean, it's nice to have oceanfront property, but clearly, climate change is a real factor. It is continuing, and whether or not we ever get a grasp on that, we'll have to see. But I mean, do you think that suggests that maybe properties need to be stepped back from the shoreline in the future then?
In my experience, retreat has always been treated as a bit of a four-letter word in coastal communities. It's a very hard sell to get people to step back from the shoreline. So I think if you're thinking along those lines, and I'm not a coastal policy analyst, so I won't speculate on the legal aspects of this, it's probably more likely to happen as properties become unbuildable or unrepairable after storm events, rather than to go take them out now. Although other countries around the world have started to look at that aspect of trying to limit rebuilding and even taking down some structures in at-risk areas. I think it's going to be prudent to start to think like that in the coming decades, particularly densely developed areas that are low-lying, not so much just because of storms, but because sea level rise will start to cause problems for infrastructure, for roads, for sewers, for water resources, as well as the properties themselves, which will make some coastal areas challenging to live on in coming decades.
Your research, from what you've gathered so far, I mean, are you able to do any predictions at all based on what it is that you've observed to maybe give As I say, municipalities also likely to give advice or assistance to coastal management as to where potential hotspots might even be going forward.
That's one common use of shoreline change data, is to look at areas that have seen a lot of erosion in the past and it's likely to continue. Projecting it into the future is a complicated story because geologically, we haven't seen rates of sea level rise this fast for thousands of years. So we don't have a lot of great modern analogs for any acceleration in the rate of shoreline change in the future. So predictions are pretty dicey on that. I think the predictions you can make is when you get a significant storm, again, you scale it something like 1938 or Hurricane Carol in 1954, you can look at those storms and anticipate the types of shoreline change, the types of impacts you'll see along the coastline. But obviously, the storms don't follow a schedule that we can predict when that'll happen.
Brian Oakley, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks ever so much. And obviously, it's invaluable research for everybody concerned, and something that's obviously going to have to continue as well for our long-term futures.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Brian.
Winter is coming, so think about preparing your plants and trees for the season. Green Valley Tree LLC can help prepare your trees to withstand heavy snow, ice, and wind with cabling, trimming, and removal. We also do pruning. In fact, we do it all. Call Green Valley Tree LLC today on 860-234-4041 or visit our website at greenvalleytreeworks.com.
Time now for a look at some of the other stories making the headlines in the region recently. The Connecticut Department of Public Health is advising residents in southeastern Connecticut to protect themselves and their children from mosquitoes to reduce the chance of contracting Eastern equine encephalitis, or EEE, after mosquitoes trapped in the Patchogue State Forest in Voluntown on September 23rd tested positive for the virus. The results represent the first EEE positive mosquitoes identified in the state by the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station this year. The risk of mosquito-transmitted diseases like the EEE virus usually increases through the late summer and early fall. Mosquitoes are active until the first heavy frost. No human vaccine against EEE virus infection or specific antiviral treatment for clinical EEE virus infection is available. Connecticut is rolling out expanded internet across the state to help those affected by the ongoing impact of the coronavirus that has forced remote learning or working. Dan Paquette is the director of the Willimantic Public Library and says they have increased many of their internet services to help the local community.
Created an exterior hotspot cafe. It really expanded the internet access to the downtown area. We've also provided 11 hotspots with the funding from the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut. These are hotspots that people can check out and take the internet anywhere they have to go. So whether they're at home, going to work, or just moving about, they have the ability to bring the internet with them.
Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz said based on census data, the state still has quite a way to go to bridge the digital divide that disproportionately affects communities of color.
20% of white households in our state do not have broadband internet at home. 35% of Hispanic families lack internet in their home, and 34% African American households lack internet in their home.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic forced many places like schools to shut down, the state has spent around $43 million purchasing laptops and providing access to broadband internet services to children and students alone to allow them to continue their education remotely. In the day this week, in New London, the city has unveiled a Black Heritage Trail, a series of 15 plaques situated across the city that explain important historic sites. A 4 p.m. ceremony was held at 42 Rogers Street to honor Spencer Lancaster, who was the first African-American selectman in New London. Lancaster, now 93, said he's pleased with the way the trail turned out and thankful for recognition for his part in opening doors for local black men and women. That's all from us for this edition. Do send us your questions and story ideas to the show via our website at connecticut-east.com or Facebook or Twitter at Connecticut East and on Instagram at Connecticut East This Week. And you can listen to the show again on our social platforms on demand. And please like, follow and share on your social media too. I'm Brian Scott Smith. Thank you for listening.